Okay, students, welcome back. This is Shark Class 5, and we're going to cover some new things today. I just wanted to say before we got started that I'm in my Captain Kelly jacket today, but really, I really like Coach Kelly as much as better, maybe. I really miss soccer. I miss touching the ball, and I'm sure a lot of you guys who play football, wrestling, a whole bunch of other sports are really missing those two. And hopefully we'll be back to those soon and we'll be enjoying good old times. So anyway, I wanted to go back and just cover a couple things on our last class. So if I may, let me just give a review. What we did, just to let you know, is we covered a couple of things. Number one, we talked about the prickly shark, and we also talked about the basking shark, and we talked about the Greenland shark. And remember, we said the prickly shark and the Greenland sharks are deep water sharks. They generally stay in way, way down, close to the bottom, and hardly anyone ever sees them. Very unusual sharks. And remember, the Greenland shark is one of the biggest sharks in the world. It's either the third biggest or maybe fourth biggest. We're not really sure exactly between the great white and the Greenland which one's bigger. We also talked about the basking shark, which we said was the second biggest shark. And when we talked about that, we talked about the baleen, if you remember that. And we said that the baleen is kind of a strainer, sort of like you take spaghetti out of, take the water out of spaghetti. As the whales and also basking sharks go through, they wind up straining their food and gulping it down. We also talked a little bit about our shark classification guidelines. And again, what we said is sharks that have an equal tail, that are kind of both sides of the same, a symmetrical tail, those sharks are generally among the faster sharks, okay? So I also wanted to show you really quick, this is a shark jaw, okay? And as you can see here, the teeth on the jaw face backwards. They go in like this. And what this has meant is once they bite down on something, it locks them in. They can't really, whatever it bites on really can't get out. They generally rip. And these sharks are generally sharks that go after other fish and so on and so forth. But we're going to be dealing now, we're going to start on the great white shark, which has, again, teeth like this and is a very aggressive shark. And not necessarily against humans, but it's a smart shark. It's a good feeder. It's been around for millions of years. So we're going to delve into that. We're going to look at a couple of videos first. We're going to look, as we look at the videos, I don't want to interrupt too much, but I'll point out a couple of things. One, we're going to discuss when we talk about the anatomy of sharks, we're going to talk about a nictitating membrane. Okay. And that's a special thing that comes down over the shark's eye when he goes to bite into something. And they do that to protect their eyes because there's no doctors out in the ocean. So if a shark becomes blinded and can't see, it'll probably die. So they have a special thing that they call a nictitating membrane. The other thing I'd like you to take a look at on the shark, on the snout of the shark, as their nose is called the snout, they have what they call ampule of Lorenzini, which is an electrical detection device that sharks have. Humans don't have this. No, really, any other animals do have it, except for sharks. But we're going to be taking a look at that. And if you could look at the snout of the shark, you'll see little pores. And we're going to discuss more of that in anatomy, but I'd like you during the video to keep an eye on that, okay? All righty, we're going to go into a video now. So thanks a lot.
Attracted to Rutson's boat by chum, a mixture of bait and fish blood. It's believed great whites can smell a single drop of blood from 100 yards away. Now that he's found a player, Rutson and his cameraman, Mornay Hardenberg, suit up and prepare to do the unthinkable, plunge into bloody water with great white sharks all around.
There's no universities to teach you what these animal social dynamics are and social behavior is. And the only way to find that out is by getting into the water.
Immediately, a curious great white comes straight at Rutson. His only protection, his camera. Rutson has figured out that great whites don't like the feel of metal. Good visibility is crucial. The sharks are constantly circling, and Rutson has to continually turn around so they don't sneak up on him.
they are extremely inquisitive creatures. I like to say they're like little kids in a toy store, and you just tell them, don't touch. Observe, they'll touch.
Problem is, when they get curious, they sometimes bite.
Yes, the animals are not trying to actively kill you, they're trying to outwit you. There's a difference. And you're trying to outwit them again.
So there's a mental battle going on, or a mental game being played between you and the shark.
I believe so, yes.
I mean, that seems like the ultimate test of putting your life on the line.
I would like to think that it's the ultimate trust between the animal and myself.
Rudson is not a scientist. He was born on a farm and knew nothing about sharks until 20 years ago, when he began working as a fisherman along this rugged coast near Cape Town. These waters are home to the world's highest concentration of great whites.
This is the hotspot in the world for great whites.
A perfect hotspot because it's an ideal feeding ground for great whites. It's not far from the southern tip of Africa where the Atlantic and Indian Oceans meet. The water is rich in nutrients, which attract whales, huge shoals of fish, and seals, some 60,000 of them. Seals are a prime target for great whites. Early one morning, Rudson takes us to an area called Shark Alley. The seals pass through here, searching for food. There are plenty of fish in the sea. Why are the sharks so interested in the seal?
The reason for that is the blubber. Marine mammals have a blubber layer, and that blubber, whoa, big shark. That blubber layer is extremely energy rich. Whoa, oh my God! That's what we're talking about.
The sharks leap straight out of the water, stunning the seals before devouring them. Seals are mammals. They're quick, agile, and smart. But as Rudson has learned, they're no match for the power, speed, and intelligence of the great whites. They have to outsmart the seal.
If they weren't as smart or smarter than a seal, they wouldn't have eaten them.
Watching great whites hunt has become a big business in this part of South Africa. Each year, tens of thousands of tourists flock to the town of Gansbaai. They're offered a close encounter with great whites from the safety of an underwater cage.
That was really something.
Rudson started his own dive operation 15 years ago. It began as a business, but has become a mission, an effort to learn about great whites and dispel the myths surrounding them.
I think that humans like to fear these animals and not understand these animals.
Each year, as many as 70 million sharks are slaughtered to make shark fin soup, a delicacy in Asia. This undercover footage shows how fins are cut off while the sharks are still alive. Their bodies are thrown back into the sea.
If people can just see these animals for what they really are, I'll be happy, because then they have a chance of survival.
You don't see every day. You see the eye?
God.
People like to think it's this evil black eye of this great whites. Their eyes are actually the color of the bluest sea. It's beautiful. Do you like blue-eyed blondes? There's a blue eye that you can't match.
I hope you've never complimented a woman by telling her she had eyes as pretty as a great white shark.
No, not yet.
Great whites have been around for millions of years, but they've never been seen mating or giving birth. Their senses are highly developed, but when it comes to touch, Rudson believes they often rely on their mouths.
So it just uses its mouth to feel you, but that ends up could be a deadly bite.
Touch is a very important sense for a living animal. So why shouldn't they use that sense?
Positive encounter with a shark without even knowing it.
What do you mean by a positive encounter?
It's where the animal comes to look at you, sees you're not food, it's not really hunting, maybe very curious in what you're doing, look at you for a while, and then move off again. You never know the animal's there, but the animal knows you're there.
And that should tell people what?
It would tell the people that these animals are not out to get us. They're not in our oceans to kill humans.
Okay, students, we talked a little bit about finning is how we ended up. And finning is a really terrible practice, probably maybe one of the worst in the oceans as far as killing sharks, because most of the shark is wasted. It's not consumed. It's not used as fertilizer. No humans are eating it. Now, probably other creatures in the ocean will eat the remains, but it kills things for nothing. And one of the things about the shark fin soup is people have crazy ideas, in my opinion. And one is that if they wind up eating things like shark fin soup, they'll become very strong and powerful, and it'll make them really healthy. It isn't so much the taste of the shark fin soup, it's that they believe it'll give them special qualities. Another thing like that that happens in the world is rhinoceros horn. People believe that if they kill a rhinoceros and they take their horn and they grind it up, that they'll become super strong and powerful. And these kinds of things are kind of crazy ideas that people do, but we can't really stop them, because there's always going to be illegal people that are doing stuff for money. So anyway, that's what's going on. So what we're going to do now is, before we go into shark anatomy, we're now going to talk about shark tagging. Now, in the one video that you saw, we did place a tag in a shark, and I want to kind of cover a couple things about that now. First, before we go into this, let me just show you, this is a shark tagging stick, and you probably saw us use this in the boat, and it implanted sharks, the tag in the sharks. Now, this is what the actual tag looks like, as you can see. And the tag, this gives information, and on here, it'll tell us where the shark was caught, and we collect all this information. And the way this works is this. We take this tag from the tagging report, and we'll take the tag off, and then we take it and we put it on the tagging stick. We'll affix it to the stick. Now, after we affix it to the stick like this, we'll wind up taking it and we'll put it into the shark right in back of the dorsal fin. Now, on this fin, on the tag, I don't know whether you can see this, it's very small, but I'm going to try to hold it still. There's little tiny numbers on there, okay? And what this says on this tag is there's special numbers. It says if you catch a shark and it has this tag in it, if you return it to the address, you'll receive a reward. Now, the reward, to be honest, is pretty small, but it does get people to turn the tags back in. So we tag the shark with the tag, and this tag is called a spaghetti tag. Now, it's kind of called a spaghetti tag because it looks like spaghetti. We're going to be talking about other types of tags in a few minutes. Now, the tagging report, when we put this tag, and this tag has the same number on this tag as it does on the report. So we tag the shark and the shark swims away. And then we wind up filling this report, and we'll tell what species it is. We'll say what species it is. We'll say where we caught it, and that would generally be the latitude and longitude, the sex of it, and we'll talk about claspers. And claspers are something that's on the bottom of a shark that you can tell if it's a male or a female. The male shark has claspers and the female does not, and generally has two claspers in the back on the underneath part of the shark. So we determine what check, then we'll take the total length, the fork length, and we'll get all of the other information we can, and then we'll send this, will turn and we'll mail this into Fish and Wildlife, Fish and Game actually then, and it'll go to the Department of, in this tape, Resources, Region, Shark Research, California Department of Fish and Game, and it gets mailed down to them. And then they put this in their records. Now, someone comes back a year or two later and they catch the shark and they take the tag and they get the information and they send it into Fish and Wildlife or Fish and Game. And then we can tell a lot of information about the shark. Some of the things that we can tell is, and this is a shark tagger report, and this tells about the sharks that were captured. And this year there was 5,000 sharks that were tagged and recorded number. The longest time at liberty. Now, liberty means from the time that the shark is actually tagged and swims away until it's recaptured. So it gives us an idea how long. And this is a porbeagle, and the porbeagle is a member of the mako family. The mackerel shark family. The mako and the porbeagle are both members of that family. And again, it was 6 years it was at liberty and swimming around. Now, during that time, we can tell how much the shark has grown because we look at the original tagging on the shark and we see when we caught it and we had logged how big it was. So let's just say that this porbeagle shark was 5 foot long. We logged down its 5 foot, we logged where it was caught. And then when it's recaptured, it swam, let's just say 1,000 miles away, and it's grown to be 12 foot long. So now we can get an idea how long it takes the shark to grow to that size, so we can get an idea of how much the shark grows each year. And some sharks do not have pups or babies until they become a little bit more mature. So this gives us a good idea of how long it takes sharks to grow, and then we can tell how many pups they'll have and whether the fishery or the sharks are growing in number or not. Now in here, we're just going to look really quick, but this gives a report. And in this report, as you can see here, it shows the different types of sharks that were caught. And one of the most common sharks that's caught is the blue shark. That's probably the most common shark in the ocean. Then the sandbar shark, the tiger shark, dusky shark, short fin mako goes all the way down with all of the different types of sharks. So it gives us an idea of how many sharks were caught. And this page can give an individual report of where the sharks were actually tagged and where they were recaptured. And then we can take a look at how long they were at liberty. And then again, how far the shark traveled. And this shark traveled 2,000 miles all the way down to Mexico until it was recaptured. And my name's in one of the publications because I've tagged and released some sharks for Fish and Wildlife. So anyway, that tells you a little bit about the tagging. Now, the next thing we're going to be covering is, and I don't know whether anyone got a chance to go to see this, but this was the great white shark that was in the aquarium, that actually was captured and was held in the aquarium. And it was unusual because this shark, even though it was fed really well, it got food on a constant basis and it was pretty happy. Eventually, it started to turn and go after other fish in the tank. And it wasn't because he was hungry, but it was more because the shark all of a sudden naturally is a predator, and it would start to go after the fish, and they decided to release the shark. Now, they took the shark, and actually it's kind of interesting because they took the shark, and this was after they got it, and they decided to release it. And they took the shark and they released it out off of Monterey, it showed here, and they recorded it. Now this tag, there's a few different types of tags that are in Shark's Fish now, and you could actually go online and look at shark tag movements, and you can pick out a shark and follow where the shark goes, because now they have tags that actually stay in the shark and determines where it goes at all times. But this shark had what's called a satellite tag. And what happened with this shark is this tag was very sophisticated. It could tell how deep the shark dove in the ocean, how fast it would go, what kind of temperature the shark would like to stay in. And it would determine all of those things. And then after a period of time, the tag would break off and it would release from the shark. And then they would recapture the tag and download all the information. And this shark at this time, you can see it went out of Monterey and it went out here into the ocean, pretty far out in the ocean. Now, they don't know why it went out in the middle of the ocean. They don't know whether it's to feed or to breed with other sharks, to have pups. They don't really know. They're trying to determine more and more information. But then it went all the way down here into Cabo San Lucas, and that's where the tag actually broke off, and that's the last they knew of this. Now, two things that are interesting in here is, number one, in here, I spent a lot of time in Mexico surfing, mostly in Baja, and in here there's Bahia de Concepcion, and there's also Bahia Magdalena. There's a lot of bays down in here. But anyway, in this one bay where there's a lot of whales, they actually decided they think that little baby white sharks were happening there. So they wound up doing some fishing for great white sharks. And they wound up putting in some baits and little long lines. We talked about that in one of our previous classes. And they wound up catching some of the little tiny great white sharks. So they knew that they actually are breeding in one of these lagoons. And they would actually see whales that would have pieces taken out of it. And they assumed that that would be the mom that would be biting a piece out of the whale. Now, the other thing is they also think that sharks continue and go up in this, and this is between Baja and mainland Mexico, and this is called the Sea of Cortez. Now, in here, they also think there's places that great whites go and breed. And one of the other things that lives in there also is the Humboldt squid. Now, this squid is kind of a interesting squid because it grows to be about 6 foot long. Now there's what's called the colossal squid or giant squid, and that's not known too much about, except it does attack whales and other things. They haven't really captured one live, but they have gotten a few photographs recently of it. But the Humboldt squid has a beak, kind of like a parrot, but really sharp and nasty. And these squid will actually go after divers and take pieces out of the divers and bite them. So they're kind of a really nasty creature. So anyway, they kind of hang out up in there also. So we're going to conclude our class for today. And what we're going to be talking about next time is we're going to be dealing into some of the anatomy of sharks and how they find their prey. Okay. And so we're going to sign off for now, and good luck with your tests. I hope you're keeping up on those, and so that'll help you learn some of these things. And we'll be talking about things like the nictitating membrane and the ampulla of Lorenzini during our next class, and you'll understand why those are so important to the sharks. Okay, take care, and thanks for now.